I'm Carol Ulsdorf.
And I'm Emma Hoover.
For our presentation, we decided to research music in the Third Reich. Emma and I are both music majors with a German minor, and so this is a topic that really interests us. So throughout history, music has always represented people and also influenced the people. It has a huge ability to speak for us when we don't have the words. And when talking about music in the Third Reich, you really have to begin with a little farther back. The person who probably had the most influence on Adolf Hitler is Richard Wagner, who was born in Leipzig in 1813, and Adolf Hitler actually viewed himself to be Wagner's direct successor, a man of genius and a hero who would save the German people, who in turn were defined and united by a purity of blood. So Wagner was a composer and conductor. He had a huge impact on opera especially. He was innovative in creating the concept of Gesamtkunstwerk, or total artwork, in which he combined music and drama with the stage and costumes and everything. But in addition to his music, he was also hugely involved with social issues, and he was also incredibly anti-Semitic. And he was before Hitler's time, obviously, but Hitler actually became very close with Hitler became very close with Wagner's son and daughter-in-law, Siegfried and Winifred, and was very close with the children also. Wagner's grandchildren affectionately referred to him as Uncle Wolf. His views were incredibly inspired by Wagner's, and he considered him to be a prophet as well. And Wagner's music was really what Hitler considered to be an accurate representation of what German music should be. It had a very strong beat and a pulse, and it was very tonal. So we have an excerpt from the Prelude to Tristan und Isolde. Let's see here. We have an excerpt from one of Wagner's operas, Tristan und Isolde, and this is a little slower than what you heard over there with the Ride of the Valkyrie, but it's very pretty, and while there's still a little bit of dissonance, it's nothing that would really shock anyone at the time. So the music that was encouraged was often based on Germanic folk tunes, and it was tonal, and the weak and strong beats were accentuated, and it was often bold and heroic sounding. And what was discouraged was what we heard in our first presentation, which was considered degenerate music, which was atonal and involved folk melodies from other cultures, and anything that just sounded weak or borrowed. And so for an example of that, we have an excerpt from an opera by Arnold Schoenberg, and it's Schoenberg. His music, whenever he initially started composing, was very tonal, but then he actually developed a method of composition called 12-tone music, and you take the 12 notes of a scale and you have to play each note before you can go back and mix them up. And this is not an example of 12-tone music, but it is an example of a lot of atonality and a method of vocal music called Sprechstimme. So there's not a clear melody with the voice, and the voice it acts very independently of the instruments, and it's not anything that anyone had ever really explored before. So this kind of music, it was thought that it would kind of disturb a person whenever they hear it. And the opera is about a clown who was driven insane by the moonlight and stabs a lot of people. So, yeah. So you hear the Sprechstimme, it's very similar to speech. There's not really a clear pitch center. So Schoenberg was not encouraged, but a composer at the time who was significant and was kind of used by the government was Richard Strauss. Would you like to talk a little bit about him?
Sure. Richard Strauss, he had a bit of an interesting relationship with the Nazi government, and because mainly he wasn't really into politics, he didn't really pay attention, didn't really care, and because of this, the government was able to take advantage of this and use his music and use his conducting However, he became more aware when Hindemith was not allowed to put on a play, an opera, actually, and he's very much against it. And he kind of told the government that he wasn't okay with this. And what kind of really pushed him out of favor with the Nazi government is when he consulted with a Jewish man about a play, and he wanted this Jewish man's name on like the production, you know. Of course, that was completely unheard of, and it was not really allowed, so it went out in like free.
Yeah, it was allowed to have 3 performances, and then it was banned from then on, just because he collaborated with a Jewish dramatist.
Yeah. So, I think we do have an example of his music by Richard Strauss in here. And as you can tell, it's also very tonal, and it's just, and by tonal I mean it's comfortable. When you hear it, you're not like
Disturbed.
Disturbed, yeah.
You have to remember that today that we are exposed to many more types of music than they were, 60, 70 years ago. We hear things every day that they wouldn't have necessarily been exposed to, so we're used to not necessarily being comfortable, and it doesn't really jar us, but at the time it would have. You have to think that 30 years before this, Stravinsky's Rite of Spring caused riots in Paris, and that's the power that music can have. So we welcome you to come and read some more biographies, and we have excerpts, and there's actually an app that we found where you can select a decade and a country in the world, and you can listen to what the radio would have been playing at that time. So you can listen to like 40s Germany at the time while you browse the website if you would like. Thank you.